Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happen. On today's episode, we're going to go over incidents with the swimmer, with the scuba diver, a crazy one on a spear fisherman. We're going to finish out the show with what were you thinking? Stick around, going to be a great show. We're going to start out the show over at Playa Grande, and that is in Costa Rica. The date is June 19th of 2011. Kevin Moraga, he is 15 years old. He is out doing some surfing with his friends. It's just after noon, about 12:15, and he is bitten by a shark. He's bitten in the left thigh. He gets severe injury. The friends had seen it, got over to him quickly, brought him onto the beach, used his board as a stretcher to take him up to be able to get to assistance. They get him in. Unfortunately, 4 days later, he passes away from complications, and we don't know what kind of shark ended up getting him. We don't know how far from shore or the depth of water. All we know is it's just after noon. He gets bitten by the shark. It sounds like a one bite to the leg, but probably a bite and shake, and that does horrible damage to the legs when they do that. So we'll put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. We just don't know what kind of shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to Dawesville Cut. That is in Western Australia, and the date is March 29th of 2014. Michael McGregor, he is 38 years old. He and a couple friends had gone out off of Dawesville Cut. They were going to dive. They were scuba diving for lobsters, so they're about 3 miles off of shore, and it's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and Michael doesn't reappear from his dive. So they call the authorities. There's a search that takes place, and they don't locate anything. And then finally on Wednesday, so this attack, 4 days after the attack, it seems, they ended up finding remains and some of his gear. It was located very close to the dive site. They said that shark involvement is not confirmed, but we're going to put this down as an attack and a predation. We don't know what kind of shark. The fact that his remains were right there at the dive site, I highly doubt that he was floating around in the same area for a couple days or even a day. He was probably taken by the shark, so that's how we're going to put it down. An attack or predation, shark questionable. Okay, now we're going to head over to Burleigh Lake, and that is in Australia. The date, February 8th, 2003. Bob Purcell, he is 84 years old, and he is doing his daily swim. It sounds like a regular routine swim that he does. He goes into the lake, and he normally swims 70 or so yards out. And he had gone into the water at 6:20 in the morning, and 3 hours later, kayakers, I believe it was, had reached his body. He had been bitten by a shark. He had been bitten severely in the leg, and the coroner ruled that the death was to bleeding out. So he passes away from being bitten by a shark. These waterways are tidal. It's a tidal lake, so it's fed by tides. It'll probably go up and down dramatically. It's probably very brackish water, probably a bull shark. I don't think that it would be full seawater, seeing as it's tidal, but it would have plenty of salt in it, so I would assume a bull shark had gotten a hold of him. And it reminds me of the lake over at Pontchartrain Lake that's in New Orleans, where it's a brackish, probably a heavy brackish lake, and there has been attacks in there from bull sharks too. They went out and they caught some bull sharks in the lake. They put nets up, 125 yards or so of net up, and they caught 3 bull sharks. I believe it was a couple days after that, one all around 1.8, so 6 feet to about 8 feet. We're going to head over to the mouth of the Sunday River, which is in Port Elizabeth, Eastern Cape Province, South Africa. The date, February 2nd, 2011. Johannes Jonk, he is 37 years old, and he is standing in 3-foot water, waist deep water, and he is fishing. Suddenly a shark comes up and bites him in the leg. He ends up having to go and walk just over a mile to go get help. So he ends up with a wound to his leg. All they say is he was bitten in the leg. Don't know what size shark. I mean, if it's a nice 7-inch wide or so bite, I would say that it's a 6-foot shark or more. But without seeing the leg, and the fact that he was able to walk a mile without having very many issues, most of those very bad, that aren't just teeth that go into you. So it could be a little bull shark, could be something that got a hold of him. But I would think that if it was a larger shark and some bad teeth marks, we would have heard about it. It could actually just be a gray reef, a gray nurse shark that got a hold of him. Seeing as it's the mouth of the river, you're talking full salinity. There's a little bit of, fresh water that'll cause a little bit of a plume there of a brackish water, but other sharks can actually be in that area too. So I'm not just necessarily going to say this is a bull shark. Okay, we're going to head over to Cypress Point, which is Pebble Beach, California, and the date January 22nd, 1966. Don Barthman, he is 29 years old. He and a couple friends, a married couple, they are doing some spearfishing. They have done 3 or 4 dives already, and now Barthman, it's 11 o'clock, and he is resting at the surface as he is ventilating his lungs, about 200 yards from shore, give or take 20 yards, in 12 to 18 foot deep water. Suddenly, he feels this crash into his chest. He is hit in the chest by a charging great white shark. The shark hits him, and he said it rode up on him like a car would. Now, when it hit his chest, he ended up with multiple broken ribs, and then he ended up having the shark put 4 teeth marks into his chest. So he was hit open-mouthed in the chest, probably with the upper teeth, I would think. These upper ones here that don't have all the numerous ones in rows. So that's what I'd assume. The upper teeth got a hold of him, and then the shark, as it looked at him, grabbed onto his arm and started shaking him like a rag doll. There was nothing he can do at this point. He's just being shaken like a rag doll. The shark suddenly lets go of his arm, and then it swims off about 10 feet away, and it makes another charge, and he's able to put his hand out, and his hand is bitten. Shark bites his hand, releases it, and disappears. So he ends up being taken in, gets his wounds stitched up, he gets repaired. He ends up in surviving this attack, a crazy attack by this shark, but I would say that this is a territorial deal, like a lot of these spear fishermen attacks by whites. Thing blasting him in the chest so it breaks his ribs. We've had those where the one was the large bull shark that hit the guy that dislocated his hip, I think it was, that it did. Just, you think about those teeth and the bite, but you don't think too much about the power and the speed and the weight coming at you. So I'm sure this happens a lot more than it's brought up with people. So that's our attack on Don Barthman. They said this was a 3-meter great white shark that got a hold of him. So you're talking 10 to 11 foot great white shark that attacked him. We're going to put it down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. 10 to 11 foot great white. We'll finish off our unprovoked attacks over at a spot known as Red Bluff. That's a surf spot over 50 miles north of Carnarvon, which is in Western Australia, and the date is August 28th of 2012. John Hines, he is 34 years old. He is out with his brother doing some surfing. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon. He's about 170 yards from shore. He had just taken a wave, gotten off his board, and was about to get back on it when a shark came up and bit him. He was bitten in the abdomen, and then he was bitten after that in the arm. It sounds like he kind of put his arm out, or it came up and bit his arm, either way. But they said that the bite to the arm was worse than the stomach. But he's bitten, and about 20 yards from him, there's about 10 people in the water. Him and his brother, of course, his brother's right by him, but about 35, 40 feet away is another surfer, Jeff Goulden, and Jeff Goulden is out there, and he hears the screams. He looks over and he can see that he was pulled underwater, and now he has to get over there to help out with the rescue. So Jeff Goulden can't see the shark, and he swims over there while others can see the shark. The shark, they said, was swimming around underneath John as Jeff swam over. So Jeff Goulden swims over with the shark swimming around underneath, grabs onto John and tows him in. He gets him in, and now it's a group effort. They get about 10 people to help get him. It's a rocky area, and it's not an easy place to get access to, and 10 people end up having to get him up to a car. They get him in, and he gets sewn up. His arm, like I said, was worse off than his then his abdomen. They assumed this was a tiger shark that had bitten him, but they said this was not too far north, that great whites would not be there, so they're not sure what kind of shark had gotten him or exactly the size. It doesn't sound like John had seen it very well, so this will go down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. We don't know what kind of shark. You know, I'll finish off the show real quick with what were you thinking. We're going to head over to Port Moresby. That is in Papua New Guinea. We've had some rough attacks over in Papua New Guinea. The youngest fatality that I've covered was Papua New Guinea, and a couple other brutal attacks there, so they have some rough ones there. And we're going to finish off the show with what were you thinking right there. The date's March 24th of 1939, and Raho-Heni is his name. He is diving into the water. I don't know if he's diving from a boat, from some kind of a deep pier or, you know, jetty that's deep right off the side, but he dives in to retrieve a coin. I don't know what kind of coin, but he goes down to retrieve a coin, and he ends up bitten by a shark. The shark severs his leg just below the hip. This is fatal. So, like I said, I don't know what kind of coin you're diving for, but it better be the kind of coin, if I would, you know, jump into the ocean and I bring that back up, that I never have to do another thing again in my life. I could live off that coin forever. It just isn't worth it. What were you thinking? You drop a coin, I don't care if it's like a rare $50, silver dollar, whatever it is, don't leave it. You know, if it's a, you know, like I said, if it's a coin that's a gold coin that's going to lead you to like a bucket of gold coins, and those are the retirement fund, then it's worth diving for. I would probably dive if I dove down 50 feet into the ocean and at the bottom was enough money that I never had to work again in my life, I might do that. So that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll be back in another few days for another full show of attacks. But until then, remember, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.